Hey, what's up, guys? I'm Nathan from the Critical Race Drury podcast, and this is my my co-host and producer, Kara Lee, where we talk about Jews and race and stuff. Oh man, I almost forgot what we were talking about for a second because it's super sad. Well, we're going to talk about the Buffalo shooter and some of the anti-Semitism and just my take on what's going on because the news sometimes does a weird job of covering these things. So I want to talk about it. And it seems like what we're going to do is go through a couple of quotes from different news sources. We have not read the manifesto. It's like 180
Well,
pages.
can I say something?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. So Nathan told me about the manifesto. I just want to talk to you. I'm talking to you. You told me about
Oh,
the manifesto, and I thought in my mind I'm envisioning a one-page document that's like, I'm out here, I'm killing people because they black. I hate the world. I hate everybody. We're going extinct. I have to
yeah.
save the white people. But then you told me it was 180 pages, and then
Yeah.
I heard 108. So I was like, 108. I was like, this guy wrote a dissertation, and then you were like, it's
Yeah, 180.
180, and I was like,
It's a lot
what's
more
going
pages.
what's going on here? Like
Yeah.
what's going on? So you I'm gonna read you some of these quotes. And let's get into it. Let's
Wait,
get
can I say
into it.
the Yeah, read
Yeah,
the
go
quote.
ahead.
No, read the quotes. It'll be fine. Because I think it comes up later in the quotes.
So quote. So these are from the manifesto themselves. An online manifesto attributed to Peyton Gendron, 18 years. Oh God, he was 18 years
Yeah.
old.
And this is a quote from
He's still alive.
yeah. You can see the footnote down below, but this is from so this isn't straight from the manifesto, but they do quote straight from the manifesto. Like you'll see at the end they quote straight from the
Okay.
manifesto. But this itself is from the newspaper, which is kind of important. Yeah. Just an
He
important detail.
explains that the attack he explains that the attack was spurred by the theory that a tide of immigrants is crowding out white populations in Western countries. The
Yeah.
manifesto also says that Jews are the real problem, but that, quote, they can be dealt with in time. I'm going to read that again. An online manifesto attributed to Peyton, 18 years old. In it, he explains that the attack was spurred by the theory that a tide of immigrants is crowding out white populations in Western countries. So basically, immigrants are coming in and they are crowding out white populations in Western countries.
Yeah.
The manifesto also says that Jews are the real problem, but that they can be dealt with in time. First reactions, Nathan.
First reactions is that this is pretty strategic to say that Jews are the real problem, but they can be dealt with in time. I think what a lot of white supremacy is trying to do right now is, to a certain extent, minimize and dog whistle anti Semitism so that when the explosion of violence happens, it can capture more people. So less Jews will be like aware and preparing for it. So saying that they can be dealt with in time, I feel like this is mirroring some other strategies that I've seen of just
Mm-hmm.
pretending. Like I told you, I knew someone who met a white supremacist and told him, "Oh no, we like Jews now." And it was like, why would you listen to a
Mm-hmm.
white supremacist instead? Yeah,
It's like a strategy to be like, no, you guys can be on chill. No, like we can
yeah,
talk. No, we're not going for you right now. And then it's like, oops, 5 synagogues blown up. Oops.
yeah, exactly. So first reaction to this quote, I mean, I'll build more on this later because so out of the 180 pages, 29 are dedicated to the Jews. And then he also talks about, indirectly, he talks about white women for a little bit, but then the rest is about immigrants and black people. And we'll get
Whoa,
more
whoa,
in.
whoa, whoa, back it up, back it up. He
Yeah,
talks about white women as if they are a problem as
vaguely.
well.
Vaguely. He talks
Because
about
he said why they sympathize and they empathize and they are like Are they
He's
nigger
more
lovers?
focused on
That's what's going on.
population, so he's more focused on the declining birth rates and white women having less, I guess, yeah, white women having less white babies, but also just in general white women having less babies. Like I just found out that, so I was at this Jewish conference and this guy who was the son of a Holocaust refugee just got Hungarian um citizenship, right? Because his family had been kicked out and they gave him Hungarian citizenship. And he was like, this is a nice way for them to kind of welcome me back in. But I just found out yesterday from someone that a reason why they're pushing in Eastern Europe to bring back citizenship for Jews who got kicked out, part of the reason is because of their declining populations. Because remember, like East Europe, parts of, big parts of Europe, the majority of Europe was colonized by its own self. Like Britain went to
Mhm.
Africa, Germany went to Africa, France went to Africa, and then also, of course, the Americas. But once you get east of there, and even Germany, I mean, is they are colonizing themselves. Basically, what I'm trying to say is shit sucks for some white people in Eastern Europe. So they're asking the same sort of questions we all are, which is like, should we even be having babies? And they've been asking those questions, like, how can we even justify having a
Mhm.
baby in this world? So birth rates have been declining for many reasons, but that's a big one that's happening. So he's responding to that a little bit. And that's why he doesn't directly mention white women, but he does sort of mention a role that they play, which is that they're not having enough white babies, which is honestly probably why these white far right women politicians are behind the bill to
Mm,
force rapes.
pushing the abortion.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
For wait. Forced rapes. What's the for? What do you
Well,
mean?
the abortion thing means that if you're raped and you don't get to abort your baby, so that would make it
Correct.
so that white men can rape white women to increase the population,
Do you
which
think that
is
they
pretty
would? My
messed
first thought is if white men want to like increase this population through their women, that my first thought was, oh no, they're gonna just create loving relationships and a great economy for their population, so that the straight women are implored to have babies with them, and you're like, nah, they gonna rape them.
I think it depends on the white woman, right? Because there are white women who would be behind this, and then there are those who wouldn't. So it depends on who you are. Like they're not just going to be willy nilly, but there are white women who have held extremely, like the conversation of um, feminism and the conversation of how much power women have held in society in the modern age is very much, it's like, okay, white women haven't had this any power. That's a big part of the conversation, is the lack of power that white women have had. But if you look through history, there's plenty of instances where the most powerful people are like the wife of the emperor or the mother of the emperor in particular in ancient Rome. So when you look at ancient Roman society, some modern historians will be like, there's crazy sexism. But then there's, people who study ancient Roman history ask bigger questions about what sexism actually is. And so if you're a woman who's like fully cool with being a woman, fully cool with being white, there's no reason why they would have an issue. There's no reason for them to rape you because you're already having white babies. See what I'm saying?
I mean, are you though? Because I think I mean, this generation of women are having less children in general. So, what if you're fully cool with being white and you're fully cool with being a woman and married to a man, but you just aren't into having a bunch of babies? Maybe you want one or two.
Yeah, sure. I mean, that's another thing that I think would play into this, but that's another example of the specific individual woman. Like this is coming down to her personal choices. But there is definitely something to say for the culture of, like, let's say evangelist white women who are totally on board with having babies, totally on board with this whole concept. You know what I mean? And this is getting pushed from a very small group of people. Like all these movements, even with the Nazis, I don't want to compare them to Nazis yet, but even with the Nazis, you have these small groups at the beginning that are pushing outward. And so they're really focused mostly on white guys. What I should have done instead of trying to respond to you was just listen to you more. Because I'm curious what you're trying to ask. And I feel like I didn't do a good enough job listening.
Okay. Well, we got another chance. And what I was asking was basically I was curious to how far this white supremacist thought goes. Does it go as far as we gonna shoot up these grocery stores, kill all these black people, kill all the Jews, kill everybody that's not white and not straight and not mentally what's the word, neurotypical, and then we're going to start raping our women because fuck what they want, they need to produce these babies now? Or is it going to be we're going to build a nation and love our women so much that we're just going to build their minds around nation building and they're going to want to have these babies? That's all my question was. It wasn't deep, it wasn't long.
That's a great, I mean, it's a great question. And truth be told, the only people that really know is them, what their grand
Yeah,
plans are.
you
Because
wouldn't you wouldn't know.
yeah, you yeah. Unless we are secretly behind everything. But no, I have no idea. I mean, I think that this is interesting because it also brings up the question. You said nation, like what are they going to base their nationalism off of? Because right now, like Germans tried to base their nationalism off of language. Anyone who was raised speaking German was German, even if they weren't born in Germany. That's why like Hitler and a bunch of Austrians had claim to German nationalism. But then with the French, you had like I think that you might call it like blood and soil, but it was more of an idea of anyone who was within these, within these lands, within these regions. Anyone who's like a neighbor, a direct neighbor to us is a French person. It's a different kind of nationalism. Whereas with white nationalism in general, you could even have, I mean, white nationalism is really, it just never went away in Europe. That's the biggest lie, which is why people are confused about it's coming back. It just never went away. They just stopped talking about it. But that's not the same thing as going away. Like if you have cancer and you stop talking about it, you still have cancer. Whoops. Um, and so that's, we could see a global white nationalist movement is very possible, particularly in Germany and Poland, I feel. But, and even in France, I mean, France was trying to elect this woman whose dad tortured Algerians, this Marine Le Pen or whatever. Her dad tortured Algerians when they were fighting for independence. And then he's also a known Holocaust denier. And in an interview behind the scenes at one point, he said, "Yeah, my daughter doesn't deny the Holocaust anymore. She's focused on Islamophobia, but I know that we're on the same page." So you know what I mean? It's like there's this whole thing where people are, I don't know, proper reparations would have meant that everyone knows all of this information already. Like everyone knows who is what the fuck is going on. But anyway,
Hmm. So my first thought is he's 18 and his
yeah,
fucking frontal, sorry for cursing, his frontal lobe isn't even developed yet. Like when I read 18, I'm like, bro, you're a kid. And it's not anything new. Like kids spearhead terrorism all over the world. Anybody can do
yeah,
it, but my heart just says, where are you learning this stuff from?
of
Who's
course,
teaching it to you? What's wrong? Do you need a hug?
of course,
Why this? Why
yeah,
this? So in your opinion, why has America gone in this direction? I know it's always been in this
sure.
direction, but what's going on? If we look at it from 2022, what could be going on that makes these scenarios possible?
I th- I think you brought up a big one. So remember in the first episode of the podcast where I that we released where I talked about how you don't just have pyramids being built to make sure that people are remembered forever, you also have social structures being built to make sure that their way of thought is remembered forever. I think The Matrix is a great example of this, of a movie that kind of asks the question, how much control do we have over our system that we versus how much control does the system have over us? which is a really important question because we have these systems that stretch back thousands and that probably to the beginning of humanity. And so what's happening now that I feel like is spurring this on is an unwilling, I feel like we're struggling with the this kind of God complex part of human history where we are labeling ourselves neither as animals nor, we're just not thinking of ourselves as animals. So we're not really breaking down what is survival, what are our survival mechanisms, what are our coping mechanisms, what is the purpose for the way we think? How did Peyton's environment get created in the very first place? And that stretches back forever, right? Back to the first person that stole or robbed, back to the first person that was born a psychopath or however that works. So, I mean, I feel like that's what we're struggling with right now is trying to get out of this sort of misunderstanding about what humans are.
I completely agree. And to me, the episode could end there. It's not going to, but
Sure, yeah, right.
I'm in Ghana and I'm fairly removed from this chaos. Like if I don't go on social media, I wouldn't know that the shooting had happened. I'm in a foreign
Sure.
country. I don't have a TV for a reason. So in that way, I'm privileged. But I guess I say that to mean that because I'm in a foreign country, I worry that my removedness comes off as callousness or as coldness or
Mm,
as she doesn't
sure.
care because she doesn't have to deal with it. A lot of Black folks, they dream of leaving the country and living a backpacker lifestyle, and they see me do it, and they're like, "Oh, you're so lucky! I gotta get out. I gotta get out like you." And I don't want I see me being out as a reflection of my worldview, which is that we have to examine ourselves as people. That's what
Mm.
I'm doing in
Yeah,
Africa.
sure.
I'm following my heart and my soul. That's the reason that I'm here. And I just wish everybody could do that. And a
Sure.
part of me feels privileged that I have the chance to understand who I am as a human, but that, and to me that's the prescription for the solution for what's going on in the states, is that we need to slow the fuck down, sit the fuck down as a nation though, and do what I'm doing here. Take a break for a decade. Everybody needs to
Yeah.
sit down and
Sure.
and really ask ourselves, like, who am I, where am I from, where are my people from, why am I like, why is society set up like this? Because that's where the solution is. Because when we do that, then we can be like, okay, wait, why are we going to work 9 to 5 Monday through Friday like this? One of my friends tweeted, my job just adopted a 4-day work week, and I'm so excited. Those types of
Yeah.
changes, those structural changes that gives you back days in your life and times, and a lot of people working from home from COVID, and that's giving them a new view. They're like, oh my God, I'm spending time with my family. I'm building my own second business, all because one little thing, it was a virus, it was a pandemic, it was a tragedy, but that changed society structure and it changed people's lives. And it got some people closer to their heart and it healed some relationships closer to their family. If we could do a mass overhaul of
Yeah.
the
Sure.
way we live, that would be, honest, it's the solution. But the question is, how long would that take? And who's
Yeah.
going to start it? And then the people who are opposing it, what the fuck do we do with them? Because they hate it. They hate that idea so
Yeah,
much.
sure.
It's an existential question because you'll have the conspiracy theorists or the conspiracy researchers or just the people who understand history being like, yeah, nah, that's bloodshed waiting to happen. What are you talking about? The people are
For
not going to
sure.
let go of their structures easily. And then you're gonna have the spiritual people saying, I'm coming. You're gonna have spiritual people saying, oh, we just need to pray on it and meditate on it and follow our highest selves. And we're gonna go to foreign lands and build these Wakandas and build these paradises, build these bird box places, and then gonna
Sure.
import people. And but really, what is the future?
I think something that you make me I've been thinking about this a while and you just brought this up in a way for me is something else is okay, you want to create this change and then people violently oppose you, let's say that's the scenario. So then the good guys are now forced to fight the bad guys. That's something, it can get really messy because that's when that's when there's no good guy bad guy. I don't want to have this good guy bad guy binary, but that's what people feel, and then people start murdering each other, and then people, like, there's like those revenge wars where it's just like you murdered my cousin, so now I'm gonna murder you. And now it's not about that original progressive cause because you're still a fucking human. You're not some ideal being. Like an idealist is never a progressive idealist is just never true to who they actually are because they're an ideal is to factor out humanity. So you got
Reality.
all these, idealists who consider themselves to be progressives. They start killing. Eventually, their cousin's going to get killed, and then it's just not even about that. And that's something that I also feel like is never really addressed. Is even if you're violently opposed, even if you want to create this change and they're violently opposing you, you have to have some system and be prepared to deal with what war does to the
The opposition.
human. Yeah, I mean, well, I was gonna say what
Yeah.
just war just does to you as a human. Yeah,
So I
because I
like
feel
that
like that's
answer
not really.
because
Yeah,
you summarize what I was saying perfectly. The question is, what is the solution? And then my solution was presenting the common idea that the good are going to have to rise up and fight the bad. And then you're saying, but the good has to consider that fighting, i.e., war, has a psychological effect and it reverberates
yeah,
throughout the future. Do you really want to do
yeah.
that? And
I
now the
mean,
question becomes a new question.
absolutely. Yeah, because that's like all right. The other thing I want to say is that like you're taking this break in Ghana. I feel like the reason why I'm able to talk about this is I haven't moved to Ghana, but for me, my life. I mean, my life is complicated by the fact that there's poverty in my family, but I got this long break from having a rich dad where I feel like I've been able to process all of these things, which is the reason why I'm able to talk about these things so well, is because that was my version of the break that you're taking for yourself right now to a certain extent, which I just
Was
feel
that
like is,
break was that break college or pre post college?
I think the break was just kind of always having a break from the most intense consequences that come without having money.
When you say
Yeah.
break, do you mean a time where you don't have a rich dad, or you got a break by
By
having a
having
rich
a
dad?
rich dad. Yeah. I mean, both are true because you have to. I mean, even Martin Luther King, he grew up in a stable middle class black family, but he had to live in Chicago in poverty in order to understand. And there was a time in my life where I lived by poverty rules, right? Where it's like I'm going to figure out what it's like to be in poverty, and if I can sucks, obviously. But yeah, I mean, that is like you need both sides. I needed to live both sides, but it's certainly easier to live in poverty than it is to live rich, and that's where I got that break. um,
Wait, wait, wait. It's easier to live in poverty than it is to live rich. You mean that?
I mean, it's easier to live in poverty, like it's easier to be in poverty than it is to be rich.
What do you mean by that?
Like I can be in poverty right now if I just give away everything and cut all ties to everybody. But in order to then, like, it's harder to be in poverty and then get rich than it is to
Got
be in
you. It's
poverty and
more likely
become.
that a person can be impoverished than a person being rich. Okay,
Yeah.
so let's get back to the juju.
Yeah,
Juju
yeah, yeah.
in some African lexicons means magic, like juju, like
Mhm.
I'm gonna
Juju
go and
beans.
do, I'm gonna go work my
Juju
juju on
beans.
someone. So I think it's funny. Juju is magic. So I think it's
Fuck yeah.
funny that you're a Jew
Hmm.
You're a Jew. So we're gonna get back to the Jew with this
Jew
quote
magic.
from the manifesto. Jew magic. So Peyton, 18 years old, the white supremacist shooter, quote from his manifesto says, replacement theory has inspired multiple anti Semitic and extremist attacks.
This isn't from his
Oh, this is not the
manifesto.
quote. Sorry. This
Yeah.
isn't from his manifesto. This is a quote from an article, and it's quoting replacement theory, which he mentioned in his manifesto. So it's explaining what replacement theory is. So replacement theory has inspired multiple anti-Semitic and extremist attacks, including the 2018 Pittsburgh synagogue shooting, in which 11 Jews were murdered, the 2019 attack on a New Zealand mosque that killed 51 people, and the 2019 massacre at a Texas Walmart that targeted Hispanic immigrants. In 2017, white supremacists marching in Charlottesville, Virginia, infamously chanted, Jews will not replace us. What are your first thoughts there?
I must have taken this quote just because I like that it makes. I mean, they cover. We got black people, obviously, because this was talking about the Buffalo shooting. Then they throw in a Jew one, and then they throw in a Muslim one, and then they throw in a Hispanic one. I think I just like this because it shows we're kind of all under attack. I mean, it reminds me of I'm
Yeah.
constantly saying it blows my mind because minorities get most of their information about each other from white people, and it's fat. It's like a fascinating thing. Like a a Jew like myself will not really listen or give too much time to a white person trying to explain Jews to me, but I might but then
Mm,
if they start explaining black people to me, it's like I'm all ears. Like I just don't it's a fascinating thing that we don't trust white people's depictions of ourselves, but we trust white people's depictions
mhm.
of each other. And that creates this division. But
Of other
really we're just kind of
minorities.
yeah, we're just all being attacked. Um the Jews will
And
not replace us.
manipulated to hate each other.
For sure.
Definitely manipulated to hate each other. And I'm not a scholar on nationalism, on separatism. There's a quote floating around that's saying segregation in the States in the 60s was not the problem that Martin Luther King was trying to fix. Segregation was not the problem. The problem was the unequal conditions in which we were segregated.
Yeah.
Basically, people saying maybe it wasn't too bad to be separated. The issue
Yeah.
was that we were getting the short end of the stick. And I'm not a
Yeah.
scholar on like the way set up societies and the effects of that and what's better being separate or together. I'm not, but there is something to be said for the propaganda and the scapegoating and the pitting two groups against each other that I'm not going to say should be working together, but there's a definite strategy of pitting two groups that you are against together so that they kill each other.
Yeah.
And you don't have to kill them because they're killing each other or they're
For
helping
sure.
you kill them. That's something we should always
For
be
sure.
aware of.
Yeah, black nationalist movements are really interesting to me too, because all nationalist movements are kind of interesting to me. And the Jewish nationalist movement, like I'll say, I mean, you guys had Liberia, which was also a shit show, some in similar ways to Israel. But sometimes I think it's a blessing that you guys didn't like Marcus Garvey's vision never played out. And the only reason
That
for that is
blacks
I
went
mean,
back to Africa.
yeah, like look at Liberia, look at I mean, honestly, I do look at Liberia, look at Israel, look at all these different experiments where look at Haiti, look at these places where they put minorities. It's almost becomes a thing where they're collecting minorities just to like manipulate and attack in a different way. And so that's the only thing about these kinds of nationalist
That's the
movements.
thing about America. That's the thing I think about America because we are integrated. It's kind of like we've become a problem because we're influencing the whites. The whites are now like,
Yeah,
oh shit, Black Lives Matter. But the whites wouldn't have been like Black Lives Matter if we weren't their neighbors and their daughters' husbands and their co-workers. If we were just these foreign people in a foreign land that they've never seen before. I'm thinking Afghanis, I'm
Yeah, but
thinking Pakistanis, people who can be manipulated for you to hate. But because we're
yeah.
Americans, it is an issue because
To
we're
be
integrated.
clear, in that continent, there has never been like the only thing that's created segregation for most of the history has been just like not a lot of black people have moved all the way to bumfuck Poland and opened a farm. Like but
Hmm.
there has always been black people and white like there's like I just want to make it very clear that there has been a lot of white people that have known other people like people of color. Like the Silk Road in its heyday would have meant that you had white people constantly interacting with Pakistan and I mean from all the way from France all the way to China, just like constant interaction. And there's always been that interaction and we've always been neighbors with people of color. And so it's like,
Hmm.
yeah,
I'm
but
talking. I'm talking. That's a great point. I'm talking about
I think I know
the
what you're
issue
talking
for
about.
a
So,
Nazi in America. Yeah,
yeah.
the issue for a Nazi in America is that it's going to be hard to turn all these white folks against blacks when they are their neighbors and their friends.
Mm. I mean, you also, for me, when I look at what blacks are going to be struggling with, it is a similar thing to Jews. I think that as black people get invited into society in a way that Jews have in the past, I think that what you guys are going to have to worry about is the distinctions that you guys create for yourselves and how you start to choose who's a better, like even among black people, are light-skinned black people still going to be at the top? Like what is that, like how are these power dynamics going to play out? Because as you guys start to get power, as people start to get invited in, they start to become as fucked up as any other. So that's the thing I worry about. I mean, like even if black people are made equals, there's inequality among white people, and white people die from being in poverty or from being forced to live in certain places next to an oil refinery where they're getting cancer and shit. um so it's like, I mean, even then that's it's just going to continue. And what you might be dealing with isn't maybe black people, like I said, I just don't imagine a scenario where all black people are going to be invited in all of a sudden equally. I imagine more it's going to be calculated to create division among black people similar to how there's division among white people.
I agree.
um, yeah.
Next quote. Are you an anti Semite? Yes, the manifesto reads in one place. Later, the author answers the question, why attack immigrants when the Jews are the issue? The answer reads, in part, they can be dealt with in time. Thoughts?
Are you an anti-Semite? Yes. So the guy who created anti-Semitism as a word and as a concept basically did the same thing. He tried to make people very proud of being anti-Semitic. And for a long time, people were proud of being anti-Semitic, pretty much until after the Holocaust, when everything started to get dog whistled and people started to realize that being proud of being anti-Semitic made you vulnerable to being compared to Hitler, and that was a really dangerous thing for people's like influence, for politicians. Um, so seeing that before, that's my first reaction to that. Why attack immigrants when Jews are the issue? They can be dealt with in time. I mean, maybe he realizes that Jews are only like 2% of the global population. We stand no fucking chance. There's never really been, up until Israel, there's never really been that much successful Jewish self-defense. Like, yeah, they're just most of our stories end with us all getting slaughtered. Um, so I mean, we can be dealt with in time. So that's my reaction to that. What it means to me though is that we need, as Jewish people, we need to recognize that the reason why America has been so good for us has been because all of the hate, not all of the hate, sorry, but a lot of the hate has been directed at black and brown people. I sometimes imagine Europe as our America, where like a black person can go to Europe and you guys will experience, perhaps, I mean, sure, you can experience racism, but a black American might experience instead being loved eerily. They call it philo-Semitism in Europe, where it's like instead of hating Jews, you'd put Jews on a pedestal and you get really weird about it. And you like, you're still otherizing Jews, but it's not necessarily around their negativities. It's around these like these weird, just this, you're trying to make them amazing. And that way, when they don't hold up to your standards, you can also just hate anyways. But like a black American might go to Europe and be loved in a different way, might experience, there's not police brutality the same way that there is in America. There's a lot of differences. But then you come back to America and it's right back to the grindstone. Whereas a Jew in America is loved to a certain extent. But then if they go back to Europe, it's back to fucking bullshit, in my personal opinion. So I mean, the reason why America's been good is because it's been directed. This so much of the hate and violence has been directed at black and brown people. So saying they can be dealt with in time to me means we need to start alleviating some of the damage that's being done to black people, which doesn't just mean funding programs that white people are running to help black people. Like that doesn't mean necessarily giving your money to Red Cross so that a white person can help a black person. We also need to start directly funding people of color and being experimental and recognizing that no one has the answer. And so we kind of just got to get weird about it and um, get creative and get as unwhite, as decolonized as we possibly can about the way we support black and brown communities. That's my first thought. Um, uh,
Give give your money to me, people. You heard it first here from Nathan Givian. Give your money to Kara Lee, gifted.org, a social impact gallery in Africa who is alleviating impoverished artists and teaching them how to read and selling their art. Quote, the Buffalo shooter is open about the source of his radicalization. It was the internet. The internet. Damn, I'm really salty that these people have passed away. Like, even though my attitude is jovial because I'm a bit tired, so I have to be that way, or I'm just gonna like go to sleep. But a part of me feels like I'm intellectualizing all of this because once again I'm privileged enough to be removed from it geographically, and I'm like, oh, of course this event is a step forward in our emancipation, our evolution as a human race, and our psychology. Things like this are going to move us forward. But even though that's true, why did it have to be like it's so extreme? It's so extreme. And I guess change has to be extreme to get people to be invested enough to change. Like it's unfortunate that people really had to die in front of other people at the hands of an 18-year-old kid. At the hands of an 18-year-old kid who got his
yeah,
information from randos on the internet, bro. Like
yeah,
so destructive. It
yeah.
was the internet and specifically an anonymous discussion board on 4chan. An anonymous
Whoa,
discussion board.
is
I
this
mean,
your first
nothing's
time?
wrong with being anonymous.
Do you know about, because it's 4chan? Do you know about 4chan?
No.
I was guessing just because of the way you pronounce it. Yeah, it's a place. It's like where a ton of people get radicalized. That's where the guy who went on a 30-minute rant saying that Jews were victims when I said Karl Marx was a Jew and that was all I said. Um, he was a 4chan guy.
But
It's
people
like
are drawn to these places, right? Because they probably feel unseen. Like you got to ask yourself, what's the energy of the person and the
for
energy of
sure.
this online platform that draws them to it? And
Yeah,
that's the work that we take a decade off to analyze our psyches and build new societal structures. A part of that has to, the question has to be, why are these 18-year-old white kids drawn to this? What do they need? What do they
Yeah.
need to hear that they've never heard before? What do they need to learn?
Well, the hard thing is that I was just gonna say the hard thing with this is that a lot of his information comes from infographics. So it comes from science that is generally taken and then misrepresented or interpreted in a certain way to fill a certain need. So if you take the science of genetics and then use that to prove that black people are stupider, that's kind of where he's getting a lot of his information from. And I think that really speaks to the fact that there's this belief that the more educated you are, the less racist you are. But these two Israeli psychologists did a study and found out that the more educated you are, the better you are at hiding your prejudice because you know what not to say because you're educated about how to critically okay, that person's getting hated and canceled because of what they're saying. I'm smart enough to know not to say exactly that.
And
So
that's
you
why part of the education has to be emotional education, emotional intelligence, because it
sure.
can't just be textbooks. It has to be, I woke up this morning and I felt like shit. I felt worthless. So I went to 4chan. I felt angry.
Yeah.
So I went to 4chan. My mom hit me, so I went to 4chan. And it has to be, okay, wait. Why'd you feel worthless when you woke up this morning? Oh, because my
Yeah.
girlfriend or whatever. We got to deal with people's emotions because the emotions drive decisions. So it's
Yeah.
like people who feel insecure about who they are, sometimes the action is to sit with yourself and get and analyze, why am I feeling this emotion, rather than take action and go. And that's just a part of the education that so many people never get.
Yeah. I mean white people have to deal with this. I mean, especially like the poor you get if you've been intergenerationally poor like for the Grady's from my mom's side of the family, like their poverty goes back to the potato famine. And so then someone, let's say now you have an educated wealthy white person telling you that you're a shitty person, or telling you that everything your family's ever gotten is because they're white. Meanwhile, your family's been has been working their asses off to survive, and now someone's telling you that everything you got is because you're white. And so I can sympathize to a certain. Obviously, I'm not making excuses, but there's also that I think is one of the bigger challenges that a lot of white people are going to be dealing
And
with when it comes to
that
this.
comes with the book smart, because I just fangirled for
Yeah,
emotional education. But if people actually became educated that poor white people exist, that not all white people are rich, that there has been a potato famine, that there has been violence against poor white people,
yeah.
then maybe some of that offensive dialogue would stop happening from minorities to white people,
Hey, can you go up to
from white
this one?
people to other white people.
Can you go up to, unless you're
Hmm.
you skipped one earlier that goes the
Okay.
it's one of it's the author says he departs from many ways of just you we've only gotten to the 4chan part I've
Uh,
realized. But just if you can go
yeah.
back and do that one too. Yeah.
Another quote: the author says he departs from many white supremacists in concluding that Jews are, for the most part, white. So basically, the normal anti Semitic white supremacist rhetoric is that Jews are Jews and Jews are not white. But this guy, 18 years old, Peyton, said Jews are, for the most part, white. But citing pages of quotations from the Talmud, he says Jews are polluted by learning that, quote, they are God's chosen people. They can't be God's chosen people because the Aryan race is God's chosen people. And they are permitted to hate and exploit the Goyim.
Goyim, yeah, sure.
In other words, non Jews, and to engage in pedophilia. Gotta check that
Yeah.
out. Purported, purported fear of pedophilia is also central to QAnon, another conspiracy theory with anti Semitic roots that has gained widespread currency on the American right. First
Yeah.
thoughts on that.
There's a couple things to break down. So, for that first part, the author says he departs from many white supremacists in concluding that Jews are, for the most part, white. This is something I just don't understand this to a certain extent. what does it mean to be for the most part white? Does that mean you can burn the non-white part of me? Like you can burn it out of me? I just don't really understand what you mean, what this kid means
Yeah, they're
for
gonna
the
do
most
like
part white.
they're gonna do like the indigenous and beat you
Yeah, put us through those
into
schools. You know, Henry Ford did that
yeah.
really hard for Jews coming over after the so before the Holocaust in 1918 was the biggest mass executions of Jews, about 300,000 Jews murdered in Ukraine, a million more displaced, like tons of homelessness, tons of craziness. So that was the largest attack on Jews before the Holocaust, 1918. When Jews are coming over, Henry Ford is putting them through these special Americanization classes in which he refuses to allow them to talk about ethnicity and makes them only talk about religion, which is why some Jews in America are really weird when it comes to talking about ethnicity. Um, so this is yeah. So they definitely have tried. Also, the Spanish Inquisition was all about basically burning that Jewishness out. They weren't looking for Jews who had converted to Christianity. They were looking for Jews who had converted to Christianity and were lying about it. And so they would torture them until they admitted to secretly being still Jewish. That's terrible. Listen, I don't understand what you want me to do. If you're yelling at me telling me Jews are white, I don't understand what you want me to do if there's people yelling at me telling me that Jews aren't white. What am I supposed to do? It's now my job to validate your worldview. Either way, I'm supposed to validate someone's worldview. Truth be told, I don't think that Jews are white if they don't feel that they're white. I do think Jews are white if they feel that they're white. That's kind of how I live my life. If you're Jewish and you say you're
And
white, I'm not going to argue
the
with
way
you.
I live my life, the way I live my life is I feel like some Jews are white passing and enjoy white privilege in some spaces, but you don't
For
enjoy white
sure.
privilege when an 18-year-old kid is walking up on your synagogue trying to blow your shit up. He white and
Sure.
he thought you was white, then he wouldn't be trying to kill you. So there's
Yeah.
something there.
I mean, it's complex because in this scenario, this guy even pointed his gun at a white person, said sorry, and then moved on to killing black people. So,
I
what if
saw
that
so
white
if that person was
was
Jewish,
Jewish
right?
and wasn't, and not just Jewish, but Jewish like me, like visible, like I don't look Jewish at all. If that guy looked
You
Jewish,
look
he
a
might
little
have been
Jewish.
killed. I
You
look,
look a little you look a little Jewish to
I look a little
me.
Jewish, but if you catch me with the right angle, I just look like I feel like I look mostly Irish, um, like Mac from It's Always Sunny
You
in
could be
Philadelphia.
projecting because
But
once I
I
really understood that you were Jewish, I started saying it. I mean, it's the
yeah,
hair. It's in there. It's in there. It's
I got
all
all
up
the
in
fucking
here.
health problems, so I might as well look fucking Jewish. If you do a fucking ultrasound of my body, you find I got all these weird genetic shit going on. So fuck it. Fucking segregation can really be shitty. See, that's the like, yeah, segregation to that point is shitty when you start having to fuck your own family because people are trying to burn you at a stake. Anyways, super disappointed with that. With my genetic issues.
Disappointed.
Very disappointed. Um so yeah, this stuff just frustrates. It also, like I was saying earlier, part of that he's saying the author says he departs from most white supremacists and concluding that Jews are for the most part white. Is that part of his strategy to get us to feel like he's not threatening us? Because he also advocates for a war between Jews and non-Jews, and he is saying that all of these problems are Jews' faults and we will be dealt with in time. So this is what I'm trying to say is you really got to question um, what the fuck is going on when people are saying these things. What is the actual strategy? And you need that context of understanding where these people are coming from, which is thousands of years of anti-Semitism. Citing pages of quotations from the Talmud. So, I mean, I'm guessing that when he's saying that Jews are allowed to engage in pedophilia, I'm guessing he's talking about a really long time ago when humans thought that children were just little adults. And so our perception of what we were able to do to kids was totally different. And I'm not about to justify pedophilia. I'm just going to say that because My
But
mom got
also,
hurt.
and also, this thing pisses me off because all people participate in pedophilia. All
Yeah,
people participate. I mean, in some African societies, the wives and the brides are young as fuck. In some Middle
yeah,
Eastern societies, Asian societies, young as fuck. Is and white societies, young as fuck. And Hollywood,
yeah,
and I know that's because Jews and Hollywood, but white people are wifing
yeah.
famously young actresses. It's just
Sure.
these issues that they're trying to cite as reasons to kill people are the human
I
condition. It's
mean,
not a Jewish condition.
and
It's not
that's
a
what it.
black
Yeah,
condition.
yeah. I mean, I was gonna say on my mom's side, you had like, she was beat, like not cute, like haha, my grandma has a slipper. She was like beat. Her dad was beat. His dad was probably beat, and it's because imagine you're talking to a kid and you really think they're a little adult. Could you imagine how fucking annoyed you would be with a kid if you really thought that they had full control over their thoughts? You would be like, shut the fuck up. Like you would like I would beat a kid if I thought they were a little adult. So yeah, that's just like part of us understanding what we are as humans. That's part of like understanding where these things come from and where our perceptions come from. It comes from a time when we just had no fucking clue what was going on. Also, the pedophilia thing is so old because they used to say that Jews stole babies, Christian babies, for their blood to make matzah. And I remember reading this story where after the Holocaust in 1946, a bunch of Jews were murdered in a building, and the white people that murdered them stole the matzah. And they were like, wait. And years later, a reporter was like, wait, you thought that they were making matzah out of the blood of your babies. Why did you steal the matzah? And the lady just laughed and said, well, I actually kind of like the taste of the matzah, and she was like, we knew
People
it
are
wasn't.
bored.
Yeah, like we knew it wasn't about the fucking. But anyways, so this shit's been used forever. The pedophilia thing, the it's like protecting white women, except this time it's just protecting um, white babies. So we can
I want
see,
to watch
man.
a video of the shooting, if I
Oh
may.
God.
Not of the shooting, but of the
Oh yeah, the
aftermath.
after. Yeah.
It gets real out here,
Yeah.
but
It's
it's
like
when
Jesus.
he is. I want to watch people get murdered. I really don't,
I
but
don't want to at
this is
all.
a video of him getting arrested. The moment that he's being arrested.
Oh yeah.
So let's do it. Yeah. I hope-
Oh my God, he shot so many people in there. Wow. Yo. Oh. Wow. Wow. Walk in, man. They gonna shot me, man. Yep. Wow.
Dude, they are being so nice to him.
Oh my God. Yo, it's about to go national. Wow.
Julie, calm down and say what she with you.
My first reaction to that video was, it's the first emotional, visceral reactions. I start crying. I go poor
Sure.
them for the emotional turmoil that they have to go through. I'm not going to make the statement about how well the white guy was being treated, the murderer, because we know that if he was of any other race, especially black, he would be on the ground with a knee in his neck and he would be maybe even dead. But
Yeah.
what stuck out to me and what I think is most relevant to this conversation is actually a comment that I posted a month ago on a different video of a woman who lost her daughter to a black man, actually, who murdered her daughter, assaulted, raped, and murdered her daughter and threw the daughter in a garbage can. And I wrote on the YouTube video, I feel that folks like this mother should automatically and freely be absorbed into some sort of deep grief counseling. free of charge and for at least a decade. Society has to protect the hearts of people who have
Yeah.
been bereaved in such a horrible manner. And she has 5 more children she has to care for while this is going on. I know she deserves and needs assistance. And that's what I'm thinking. That woman who's beating the ground, yelling, "Mama, mama," where does she go? She goes home and she lives the rest of
Yeah.
her life in that situation and no help. I mean, the best she could do is if she has the financial means, she'll get a therapist. And but a lot of people just go home and they sit on their couch, and that's a part of this rebuilding society. Like when if we know that we live in a society where there are mass killings because of
Yeah.
white supremacy, there needs to be a so if your family member died from one of these mass killings, here's a bunch of resources, here's a bunch of help,
Yeah.
here's how you can live the rest of your
There
life on earth and make it meaningful. But there's
we
none
mi-
of that.
we might as well mention that the and maybe it's because of the anti-Semitism in the manifesto and the fact that he also labels 3 Jewish towns um, by name as if to say they will be targets in the future. Um, Jewish
These niggas are
agencies,
bored. There's so
Jewish
much
ag-
more life to live. There's more life to live. He could be an artist.
yeah,
He could be doing great things, but he just decides to not have the special sauce, as Amber Khan said, and to be angry about it. It's so corny to me. It feels like a chore. It's like, wait,
yeah.
so this kid and these groups of people have such low self-esteem because that's what it is.
Well,
They feel so pushed out and removed of society, and they're so brainwashed by this negative theory that instead of living a beautiful life, they just want to make other people's lives hell. It almost feels, and then what is it? I have to fix it. I have to stop my beautiful life to go tell somebody with low self esteem that they're wrong and they should try to think differently. It feels like a chore, but it does. And if that's where I feel like we're at, that we have to like stop our lives to go educate people.
so the
Yeah,
one thing I'll say is that there are Jewish agencies who are setting up mental health services for this for the people affected in Buffalo. I don't. It seems like it's specific to the people who are immediately affected in Buffalo.
that's
Even if
great.
that's just folks in the neighborhood. So there are some resources you might have to Google. We can probably post those in the post production. Have a link or something. But there are some resources that are being made available. Unfortunately, I don't blame the Jewish organizations for this, but I think unfortunately they are specific to Buffalo. So if you're hurting really bad outside of that area, but you're still hurting really bad because of this, we might be able to find some more generic resources, which don't feel as good to put up. But any help I think is better than no help. So
Then no help.
um, yeah, so we can do that, but and there are some things that are being set up, but it is there. I'm astounded always to find out how few people know about resources that are available to them. So we should definitely um, put that up
Facts.
there.
Because I was about to say, I know I'm speaking like society doesn't have these structures. Society doesn't, but we are society. I know that. I know that every
Yeah,
person listening to this is society, and you and I are society. So you just gave me a
yeah.
great example of society having a resource, and that's
Well,
awesome. So we will share
not
that.
just society. I do want to be. I'm talking about these Jewish organizations because really minorities have community, and something I've been reading from these various different Black authors who I've been seeing, because I've been looking at the Black side as well of this, although most of what we talked about are articles from Jewish sources. But these folks who are saying, Black people have been poor and existed from like survived through community. And so community doesn't necessarily need money, but that's the importance. I mean, obviously they do need money, but the important thing is that we also, we can talk about society as a whole, but this is about, for me, communities, minority communities coming together and supporting one another, which I think is a different kind of special. Obviously, I would like it for just to be ingrained in society, but Our system is not designed to handle humans; it's designed to handle the ideal.
Yeah,
Um,
community is a big word in like humanity. Like it's something that we need to be building. Because Antoine from College of Worcester, our classmate, he posted on his story a couple days ago something akin to like money is one thing, but when the world is really in upheaval, you're going to look to your neighbor, you're going to look for the person down the hallway, you're going
yeah,
to look to the person down the street,
exactly.
and
Yeah,
you realize you've never said hi to them, you've never said hi to them, you never knocked
yeah,
on their door, and you're fucked because you don't have a
for sure,
community.
for
And like
sure.
we really have to start building community again.
Yeah, definitely. I'm not even kidding you. Part of my community building tactic is genuinely to build community with people who I feel comfortable being hiding in their attics. For me, that's like on my mind, and I think that's because my family was
Mm,
how long they were in Europe before they escaped, and how much of the anti-Semitism they really saw and were surrounded by. But really thinking about, okay, taking into account who do I actually trust with my life, when at the end of the day you were looking at scenarios where everyone was saying, oh, how could this have happened, how could this have happened? But if you're really looking at a situation, it's more like, I mean, you had Zionism didn't start because people wanted to colonize Palestine necessarily. Zionism was also, there was part of the movement was get the fuck out of Europe because they're fucking crazy. And I don't agree with that specific analysis, but it's similar to the Nation of Islam, where Nation of Islam has these ideas of white people in their genes, white people are evil and pro genocide. And it's a
evil
similar thing
villains.
where, yeah,
Yeah.
because even though Nation of Islam is predominantly black and European Jews are predominantly, white passing or white, um, we're still humans responding to our environments. So we have a similar kind of, wow, we've been genocided and attacked, killed so much. I'm starting to think it's in these fuckers' DNA, um, which I just think is interesting. Yeah, but I definitely, and I think, oh, sorry,
We have 2 minutes. So in our last 2 minutes,
cool.
what are your final words?
Going off of what you just said, off of Antoine, and I mean, just continue to look out for each other, continue to support each other. And like I said a little bit earlier, I mean, if you really don't know what to do, don't worry. No one has the answers. Just make sure that, for me, the best tactic is to make sure that the money is going directly to the problem. There's as few middlemen as possible, because we really just don't have a great idea of how to solve a lot of these problems, and there's so little being done. What I'm essentially advocating for is, if trickle down economics was the way our system was set up not that long ago, just participate in it. Just participate in that trickle down, because that's how it's supposed to work. It's not supposed to be the system demands it. We're supposed to do it ourselves. So if you have something, let that go, give and support and care about each other. That's the best I can come up with. How about you?
That's it. We're done. Oh, me. Well, I liked
Yeah.
your word idea. You said nobody has a good idea. I think the future is going to be about ideas and who has the best idea for these solutions. I can even imagine like a huge international think tank where people who have deeply thought about the trajectory of humanity gather and give
Yeah.
some ideas that can be put into systems.
Yeah.
So if you're out there, a person, a thinking person, I think your next step to be really valuable in the future is to become an idea person, a thought
You're
leader, and have these
there we go.
solutions come into the public.
Your mic started to sound weird for a second, but it was like garbled for a
Okay.
second. But um I
At which part?
mean, when you started to talk, pretty much when you started to talk about the um international think tank.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna repeat it, but hopefully the
That's cool.
recording
Yeah,
isn't
that's
bad.
fine.
Maybe it is. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, even though I like that because that even like if you don't know what to do with your money, if they do that, a good think tank, a good international think tank would require poor people to be there, which means transportation is going to be needed to be paid for. So it's like, figuring out these creative ways to give money directly to the folks that require that resource. All right,
I want to go watch
cool.
Star Trek. At moments like this, I want to
Ooh,
watch Star Trek.
that's a good idea.